Do you think my philosophy could be called a self-help philosophy? I mean, I know I haven't told you a lot of the high-level stuff. I've hinted at. You can kind of get an idea of my politics and what kind of art I like and things like this. That probably define my personality and character more. But this relativistic skepticism, it is a way to feel a calm with life, and that seems like okay. That puts it in the self-help kind of category. I mean, see, I like to look at my philosophy from a lot of different viewpoints of philosophical and other ways of judging the quality of an idea. Okay, the practicality, various things. Um, and the self-help view is one of them. And I think a lot of people are going for the feeling of tranquility is what they're really trying to get out of their self-help and enlightenment, a way to feel okay with things. And that's what Pyrrhonistic skepticism supposedly was ultimately about. What he claimed that the ancient philosophers wanted was a way to think about life that led one to a feeling of tranquility. The funny thing, though, is about the feeling of tranquility. Well, you definitely can get that from a skeptical point of view. It doesn't necessarily improve the situation. It's not like it makes a tranquil situation. You can be tranquil in any situation. That's not necessarily what you want. I mean, you can be tranquil, but if you're born into a family of alcoholics, then that's not going to sober them up. Accepting that that's the way things are is not going to sober them up. So that's the issue there, really, is that we find out that in skepticism, accepting things the way they are is all well and good. The trick is, what do you do about it? Um, Now, I like to think that my higher level, or whatever you would call it, this other part of my philosophy that I was describing, is all in accord with relativistic skepticism. But then again, that's pretty easy because in the end, all you have to do to be in accord with relativistic skepticism is be extremely honest with yourself about what appears to be the case. You can't say it appears to be this case, but I really believe it's this other way. If it appears to be that way, then that's what you have to go with. And it's surprisingly difficult for people to be this honest with themselves. But once you get it, then, you know, if you simply uh, face the reality of what seems to be the case, then it can seem to be the case that you should abolish the Department of Education. It could seem to be the case that you need socialized medicine. It could seem to be the case, all different kinds of things. Now, I'm fine with that openness um, of the epistemology because I think at the level at which we have to find agreements in social philosophy, um, that's all we really need is honesty and then honest discussion. And I don't really even want to always get my way. So one of the views is that really a self-help thing to have a worldview where you can feel tranquil, but at the cost of not actually changing the world. In other words, self-help is two things. The feeling of tranquility is one thing we're going for, but if you get it, then you have to face the fact that you want to change the world so that it's easier to feel tranquil. So, um, the other kind of points of view that I value in judging my philosophy, and I say, well, where do I stand in this world, in this philosophical domain? Um, I like to think it's not from my educational indoctrination, which I resisted at the time or thought, but I do value an analytic view. Are things coherent, valid, complete, uh, and analyzing things that way? I also have what I mean, I have had to deduce it, but there's a tradition to it. What is my philosophy from the poet philosopher's perspective, or just the poet's perspective? How does my philosophy ring in the ear of the poet? And relativistic skepticism is not particularly poetical, but it's a language in which you can write poetry, so I think I do okay there. Um, Under that, there are lots of philosophical positions, just a gathering of a library of attitudes. Um, the five philosophies being the epitome of those, but of course, there's any number of schools of philosophy that I have learned to have some notion of what their perspective and attitude is. And I would judge my philosophy from as many of those as I can. My philosophy, the one I presented on YouTube, seems uh, to me to be the driest part. The part really that it's meant to be, um, it's meant to be a base and therefore somewhat bland in some sense. It's not the spice of life, it's the foundation of life that you put down. And on top, you're supposed to be able to put any kind of detail, uh, with the restriction being against dogmatic certainties. But you can still advocate for the same idea. Like you could say, you should only marry one man should only marry one woman, but you have to put that on some sort of a natural ground of argument from reality, from natural principles, things that you can say are material between you and other people. If you want to argue that that applies to other people, rather than, well, that's just what God says or something like this. So you can have pretty much any philosophy, but you lose this justification. So if the only way that you manage to argue for your beliefs is that some God said so, or something like that, then you're pretty much screwed. But you can still believe, all the same things. You can even believe that God exists. You just can't do it because it is so and it's true. You have to do it because I saw the God. And people can question, well, was that a hallucination? And you can have an argument about that, about real perceptions, which makes it potentially a material discussion. So yeah, you think you can have, because I was thinking about this island thing, and it's like, I don't know. I I really don't know what to do now. I enjoy talking about philosophy, but see, I think about it to myself a lot, and it's gotten to the point that I'm not sure what I'm specifically getting from this particular kind of discussion, and I'm thinking about the discussion itself. I'm going into meta, and I'm thinking it would be fun to sponsor discussions. That's an interesting thing. Making a website, um, in itself. I'd like the idea of a website that has a real world component. So, a website like YouTube where, yeah, you have, from the start, you have get togethers and maybe the whole site is set up to fund at least certain people to go there so that other people can choose whether they want to come. Um, and I'm not sure that that's a good idea, but it's sort of a kind of area I'm interested in thinking about, because it's making me think. Okay, I've done this communication thing because I think taking part in the public debate is valuable to me. I believe there's a value just out there, not intrinsic, but but real. That this is a real conversation, that it bubbles up and around into all the other forms of the conversation, the talking heads and things like this. And if we get our ideas straight, political, otherwise, that all the wealth and the media, they'll all follow. So that's all well and good, but now I'm also thinking that, yeah, I mean, my method has been sort of conversational, and yet there's always this 10 to 1, 100 to 1 rule of commenters, how many more commenters than video makers, how many more viewers than commenters, and I'm wondering, is there something that is helping individuals about this? Because that's really has been of no concern to me. It's not that I'm unconcerned, of course, with individuals. I hope I've shown that I am, but um, that has not been the point of the channel. And if you have to be blunt and honest, and somebody gets a hurt feeling, that's not the point, because the real benefit is in the overall thing. Um, but I do believe it's good for individuals, so maybe I could think more about that.